In this video, I'm going to show how to set up your OpenTX transmitter to allow your tail P gain to be adjustable by a trim button on here. Just to show you what I mean, right here, this global variable right now is at 62, and this is the same number that your FBL, whether it's IKON or Spirit, would be reading from the transmitter. It would be reading 62. And I've set things up so that if I push up and down on this elevator trim button, this value here, this global variable, adjusts. So if I hit down,
Tell P gain 60.
or if I hit up,
Tell P gain 62.
not only that, I'm in throttle hold mode right now. If I switch out of throttle hold and go into my low head speed, you can watch what happens here.
Low head speed 6 minutes.
I have a different value, a different global variable value stored for my low head speed value, and this is fully adjustable too.
Tell P gain 56. Tell P gain 54.
Same thing for my medium head speed.
Medium head
You switch
speed.
this up and has a different value, and this one is fully adjustable too.
Throttle hold.
And just to show you what's happening in the background before I demonstrate how to set this up, if I go into my channel output monitor, and if we take a look at what's going on here, what I have is a dedicated channel, it's channel 5 here, which I've called gyro out, and this trim button controls what is being sent to the FBL. So if I go up or down on this trim button here,
Tell P gain 60.
60,
Tell P gain 62.
62. And the reason the red here, the reason the output is a little bit higher than the mixer value is I had to adjust the output so that my FBL would read 62 when internally this transmitter thought it was 62 as well. I'll get to that in a little bit. That's probably a bit confusing if you haven't dealt with that before. In order to show you how to do this, I think it's best just to start with a brand new model. So I'm going to go to one I just created, and I haven't modified a thing as far as I know. How do we do that? There we go, model select.
Throttle warning.
And really I haven't set a thing.
Switch warning.
Switch warning, sure. Instead of using the elevator trim button up here, I'm going to use the rudder trim button over here. I think that makes more sense. But right now, this rudder trim button is set to actually change the rudder trim. So if I hit left on this trim button, you can see it's moving that trim dial here.
Trim center.
First things first, let's get rid of that functionality. We need to go into our model setup, and then it's in the flight mode panel here. So I'm going to page over until I get to flight mode. Here it is. And by default, you're always in flight mode number 1. If you've never dealt with this, you're always in FM 0, which means, sorry, you're always in flight mode 0, not flight mode 1. So right now we're in FM 0. If I click this, I'm able to scroll over here, and up here it tells you what each of these trims are. So I'm going to go and just disable all of these. I'm going to click and then scroll over to rudder trim, click again, and then scroll that to the left and disable that. So now if I go back to that screen we were at, you can see there's no more trim right here. And if I hit left or right on this trim button, the same one I was doing before, it's not working, which is what we want. Just for good measure, I like to disable all of these. I don't see a reason to have them, especially with an FBL setup for helicopters. The way to have different values for your global variable in each of your head speeds is to utilize these different flight modes. We're going to utilize flight modes 1, 2, and 3 here, so let's disable trims in those as well. Okay, I've disabled all those trim buttons now. What I want to do is tie each of these flight modes to my different head speeds. So I'm going to attach or associate flight mode 1 with my low head speed. So this one right here, this first field is the name. I'm going to be lazy and not name it in this tutorial or whatever this video is. If I scroll one over, this is the switch, and it can be an actual physical switch. It can be a logical switch as well. I'm going to tie this to a physical switch. So I click it, and then I'm going to switch it to SE toward the back of the transmitter. That will be my low head speed. Exit out of there. I'll do the same thing for flight mode 2. I'll set this for the middle value there, the middle position. Flight mode 3, I'll set this to forward toward us. That will be my high head speed. Since switch E is a 3-position switch, this right now I have this set up so it can only be in flight mode 1 or 2 or 3. So this flight mode 0, which you should think of as sort of the default flight mode, never gets selected. The way flight mode 0 would get selected is if I get rid of this SE in the down position. Let's erase that. The way this works is OpenTX goes through line by line, starting with flight mode 1, and if it sees a match, it will just stop there, and that will be the match. So let's see what happens when switch E is now in the forward position, or toward me, toward us. It doesn't find a match, so OpenTX says, okay, let's default to flight mode 0. Typically, flight mode 0 would be your throttle cut switch or your throttle hold switch, depending on how you have things set up. But I'm going to go ahead and just, for this simple tutorial, we'll keep it simple. So we're either in flight mode 1 or 2 or 3. So this screen is completely done. We're now going to go over and actually set up our global variable. That's one of these. There it is. Each of these rows is a different global variable. There are 9 available for us. I'm going to utilize global variable 1. And if I click this, I can enter this row. This number here is the value of the global variable when we're in flight mode 0. This next column here is the value when it's in flight mode 1. FM0 means if you're in flight mode 1, the global variable 1 will default to whatever flight mode 0 is. Which means if you're in flight mode 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, right now all of it is 0. All of these just default to 0. Or they would all default to 8. But we want 1, 2, and 3 to be completely different from each other. So I'm going to just set this back to 0. And then what you have to do here is if you just short press this FM0 and then scroll left and right, you'll select the different flight modes, but we want a completely different number on this. So for that, you need to long press it, and then that activates the numerical version of the global variable. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, okay, flight mode 3, there. So now these all will have independent values, independent from each other. I'm going to exit and then long press this global variable 1, which will allow me to edit its settings. I'm going to go to edit. This is where you would name it if you want. You could name it gyro or p-gain if you want. For the unit, you could probably just leave it as a dash, or I don't know. I'm just going to put this as a % here. I don't know if that's necessary, but that's what I've done and it works for me. The precision, let's see, I think we just need whole numbers here, so that precision is fine. The minimum value here is going to be -100, and that's specific, and this you need to look up your manual and your FBL. For IKON, which is what I'm most familiar with, it can go from -100 to +100, so I'm setting my min and max values now. Setting your min and max values are very useful because it allows you to limit your, when you change the value here, you can't go beyond 100 or -100. You'll stay within that range. We're done setting up our global variable. I'm going to exit out of here. And let's see what else we have to do. Let's actually have this value change now using one of our trim buttons. So I'm going to go into special functions. And then for this first special function, I will click it. And then I'm going to long press it and just jump to one of the trims. And I'll click trims. And what did I want? I wanted rudder left and rudder right. So this is R for rudder, L for left. Click that. I don't want it to override a channel. I want it to adjust a global variable. So you scroll until you see adjust global variable. Here you choose the global variable you want to adjust. Global variable 1 is what we want. And then this, I believe, if I just short press this, this will make it jump to that particular value. But we don't want that. We want it to increment by a value. So I want to long press this, and then it gives another submenu here. I'm going to go to increment or decrement. Click that. And now if I scroll left to right, I can choose how much I want to increment or decrement this by. Let's go by -2 or so. So that's what our rudder left will do. Let's save some time and do a copy and paste here. Long press, copy, scroll down here, long press, paste, and then all I have to do is adjust this rudder left to rudder right, and we want to increment this now by +2. Now internally, everything should be set up now. I'm going to exit out of here and show that to you. Just to show that, I'm going to have that value show up on here. I think that's just convenient to do. To do that, how do we do that? Oh yeah, I'm going to press this button here to edit this. Let's go page back, top bar, setup. Sure. Widget, oh my gosh. What do I want to do here? Select widget. I want it to be a value. value will be global variable, and it'll be global variable 1, sure. So let's see if it works now. I'm going to zoom out so you can see my clicking action here up top. I'm going to go rudder left, rudder right. Okay, what I forgot to do was actually enable this function here. So I need to click this, scroll over here, and select it. It's just an oversight on my part. Okay, so now let's see if it works. I'm going to click rudder left. Yep, rudder right. Good. There aren't any voice functions. I'll show you how I did that in the last part of this video. But everything is set up. And not only that, I'm going to see, right now I'm in my low head speed mode. Let's set that to 20. I'm going to go to my medium head speed, and it is now at 0. So let's set that to something like 16. High head speed, set that. I'm going to go back here and just look at what's happening in global variable. Let's click to the global variable setting here, the panel. And then as I go left and right, you can see I'm in flight mode 3 right now. That's this 4th column here. And it's only adjusting that instance of global variable 1. If I go to flight mode 2, my medium head speed, it's only going to adjust that version of it. Let's go to our channel monitor and see what's going on there. Our channel monitor, well, nothing. I've got the basic functionality of these 4 different channels, but I haven't told OpenTX that I want this global variable to be an output channel. So now I need to go and make sure that my global variable 1 is associated with channel 5. So we need to go through that. And there are tons of ways to do this. I will show you how I do it. I start with input, and on my input, I'm going to long press this. And if I had more time here, I would name these very carefully. But I like to do max for the input. Any type of switch or global variable thing, I like to just do max. Where is that? So that will spit out, or that will output just 100%. So I'll exit out of that. Is that all I have to do here? Modes. Yeah, I think that's all I have to do here. Let's hope. So now in mixes, this is where I associate, or where I tell the global variable to modify that max value. I'm going to long press channel 5 now. The source will be input 5. Yep, this little symbol means input, and this is input 5. And I want to go back trim. I don't know. I always disable anytime I see trim. And then for the weight, this is where the magic happens. If you just short press this varies the weight by the percentage you see. However, if you long press it instead, then it switches to global variables, and by default it's on global variable 1, which is exactly what we want. Remember, global variable 1, I'm guessing it was at 16%, and look, it's already outputting 16. If I switch to my low head speed, 20. If I switch to my high head speed, it's at 10. So this is already doing exactly what we want. And actually, this is the output, isn't it? So if I go to my channel monitor now, and then press, we've done it. We have an output now. And if I change this, what am I in? Right now I'm in my low head speed. Low head speed in IKON, I don't know, in my experience, it's more like in the 70s or so. So you could set your default values here to whatever you want. The one thing, though, that isn't set up is if you look at your IKON software, it might not be reading 36% right now. Internally, the global variable is at 36%, but we need to tell the IKON FBL that it should be at 36. And that's where you adjust your outputs values. So this was channel 5, if I remember correctly. And what I do, what you have to modify is your PPM center, and then you need to modify your min output and your max output. This is usually either 1500 or 1520. The way to tell is to set one of your global variables to a 0 value. Here, let's set this one right here to 0. And that's right at the midpoint of the channel output. 0 is, because you can go into negative territory, remember. So this should be right in the middle. And then in outputs, this should read 0% in IKON. And if it's not reading 0%, Then you just adjust the center value until it reads 0%. So I forget what this is in IKON, 1500 or 1520 again. And then what you need to do is increase your output. Increase the global variable value. Let's increase this to something like 94. It doesn't really matter. So I adjusted it to 94. And then I'm going to go back into, where was I? I was in outputs. And then you want to adjust, okay, this little arrow means it's on the positive side of the output, not the negative side. So if I adjust this value here, this output, it's going to adjust the what is in IKON right now. So this you need to, in IKON, either this is more like 113 or in Spirit it's more like 83. It just depends on what you want. But what you're doing is you're adjusting this value until in your FBL software you see the same value as what the global variable is set to. So what did I set it to? 96 or something? So you would adjust this value to whatever it needs to be until you see 96 in your FBL value. Except you'll notice that I can't get beyond 100, right? So that seems bad. There's a way to do that. If you return in your model setup, somewhere here, there's something called extended limits, I believe. I don't know where it is. Extended limits, there it is. Click that, and then, lo and behold, you can go beyond 100% in your output. So I think in IKON it's like 113, but I don't know, you'll have to play with this. 113 or so, and then here, it's close enough. And then here, this is usually symmetric about the center point, so sure, that's good enough. And so now if I look at my channel monitor, this is the global variable is at 94%, but it's actually outputting 106. And this 106% output, it is what it needs to be so that the FBL software is actually reading 94. It's interpreting the output as 94. So I think that's all you need to do to set it up. Let me show you, and I'll be honest, this is a fairly simplistic way to do it. I will go back to my actual model that I had for my Spectre. Where is it? Spectre 700.
Switch warning. Mode 1.
And I'll show you a few things that I had done differently just because that's how I had it set up. In flight modes, you'll notice I disabled all the trims. My flight mode 0 is my throttle hold value, and then, or throttle hold mode. And then flight mode 1 and 2 and 3 are my low, medium, and high head speeds, but they're not activated directly by the switch, by the physical switch. They're activated by, what is this called? Logical switch 11, 12, and 13, respectively. And logical switch 11, 12, and 13, let's actually see what those are. 11, 12, and 13. So that's an AND function. My throttle hold has to be disabled, meaning away from me.
Low head speed. 6
And
minutes.
for L11 to be true, then SE has to be away from us, toward the back of the transmitter. So I can only have either 11, 12, or 13 active at a time.
Head speed, high head speed, medium head speed.
But
low
if
head speed.
if SH is not in the up position here, if I
Throttle
put it in the
hold.
down position, then 11, 12, and 13 all become false, which means this will default back to flight mode, whatever it was, flight mode 0, my throttle hold value. Other things I had differently, I don't know, let's see. I had named it, instead of leaving it just channel 5, or input 5, I named it gyro. In mixes now, this is where we long pressed this and made it GV1, and that's all I had done here. Yep, long pressed it, made it GV1. Didn't do anything else. And then the outputs, this is where you have to make it, oh yeah, I was wrong. So 1520 here for IKON, and then it looks like 106 or so on either side of positive and negative to get your FBL to match what it needs to be. But remember in mine, I have voice output as well, right? If I click this,
Tell P gain. 60. Tell P gain.
and that's just done with a massive amount of special functions, that's all. Let me just show you maybe one of them. So it's my elevator up and elevator down switch that does that. Let's look for the first one that we see. Okay, elevator up and down. Okay, apparently L16 does something here. L16, I'm guessing that's going to, I've got a special function that looks for when L16 is true, and then it says p gain.
Tell P gain 60.
Sorry, it says tail p gain.
Tell P gain 62.
And let's just actually check for that. So that was what, L16. Let's look in special functions. Special functions, L16, yeah, there we go. Oh, well, here's where we adjust it first, exactly as I had shown you. Elevator up trim, elevator down trim. It adjusts GV1 by 2%, and look, I had it enabled here. But I do something else as well. If L16, and L16 is either elevator up or down, I did this just to save room because I have way too many special functions, as you can see. That will play a custom track that I created using some software. This means B for Brian, this is tail, P gain. So that's what I do here. And then I actually have it play the value, GV1. And actually we can enable this. This is pretty simple to do, this play value GV1. I think for what we do, that's, if you're gonna set this up yourself, that's probably fairly easy to do. I'm going to change my model to whatever that new one was that we created, model 49.
Throttle warning.
Yeah.
Switch warning.
Okay. Let's go into special functions. And if I click rudder left or rudder right, okay, let's long press this and do trim. Let's play a value. And the value I want to play sound, there, play value. The sound will be GV1. Let me long press this and jump to GV1. There. And then this will be the trim rudder right. And actually, let's just copy this. Paste. Rudder right. Okay, let's see if it works.
68. 70.
Is that right?
68.
Yep.
70.
Now, if you hit this twice in succession, listen to what happens and watch up here.
72.
So if you hit it twice, it really only plays the first one. Maybe it, I don't know, it gives up and doesn't say the second one. So if you adjust it too fast, it will not say the actual value. But if you hit it, 3 times in a row,
76.
it will really adjust the value. It just won't say it.
78. 72.
So that's how to do that.